course, we can make sure that everyone that runs a Mayako has all the information they need and they can make the most of their racing. So the goal really is to maximize your racing success and enjoyment. That is the goal of this. So what I want to do is I don't want to repeat everything that's in the book or in the online course. The point of this is more to briefly go over stuff, talk more about practice and how to practice and practice together. So sort of have incentives for people to go to the track and actually do something of value. And also, it's possible for people who are here, who want to take their racing to the next level, to be more active, more proactive, and get more one-on-one support and advice. So we'll focus on practice, driving, and learning to set the car up for yourself. Those are the main goals, I would say. And we also have this document that Scott made that you can all check out and fill in. And it's basically you taking a few minutes and thinking about what your goals are in racing and what your goal is for this year in this youth mentoring program. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to start today, I promise. But first, just a few points to go over. I'm going to go over what I believe to be the best way to practice so that you actually have results. If you're completely new, just driving around the track is enough. But if you can do that, then just going to the track and driving isn't going to help you progress that much. You need more of a plan. And that's what we're going to talk about here. Another thing we're going to do is we are going to use VRC. I know some people may have tried it, may think it's no good or no use, but I believe that it actually can help. Off-road, I don't know, maybe not so much, but the on-road, at least the on-road 12 scale car in VRC, the video game, for those of you who don't know, it's actually quite realistic. You can set the settings so that you can drive around the track with your own radio and it feels realistic. So I was thinking, I don't know, you can tell me what you think, but I was thinking that we should start off with a track, a car. Everyone has the same settings. So we settle on a track, a car, and the settings. Everyone runs the same thing. And then we make it into a bit of a contest. So we record the best lap time, best 8-minute run, and also the most consistent run. Who can do an 8-minute run with the most consistency? And we could, we have to figure out what the right amount of time is, but I think maybe a couple of months of one track and everyone practicing on the same track with the same setup could work. And then after that, we could switch up to a different track, or maybe a different class if someone has figured that another class can work well. So VRC, the point really is to just get track time, because it's a way for you to drive with your radio, concentrate on being consistent without having to go to the track. And I don't think many of us can go to the track 7 days a week, but we can all pick up the radio, turn on the computer, and spin some laps on VRC. Then another thing that's really important is, of course, your car. So we're going to talk about the Mayako buggy build and base settings. Then when we do go to the track and we are practicing in a good and efficient way, we'll also talk about setup test homework. So we all test the same things, we keep notes, and we talk about them here as a group and on Discord. And we also want to track our progress. So we'll mainly be focused on improving our 5-minute run consistency levels. That's what we want to focus on. Another thing we will do is we are going to have some guest speakers. So it's not just going to be me. We're going to talk about mental strength, focus, practice, methods, driving, racing, sponsorship, and media. Some of these will be professional racers, and others will be professionals in other disciplines that can help us here. I said that I don't want to repeat everything that is in the course or in the book. There's a lot of great content that already exists. And I'm going to add it, or I'm going to add links to the most important videos and pages that I would like you to check. I'm going to put it in the course material up top. And I hope that you'll at least check those out. And then when we come back for our next meeting, if there are any questions that you have regarding those things, then we could go over that. So I think it's better if something isn't clear, then people ask questions and we talk about them here. So I will, does this document stay here if I share something else and then we get back to it, hopefully?
Yeah, it should stay. I think it's part of the meeting, so.
Yeah.
You'll just have to bring it back up once you go back.
So it saves itself somewhere?
Yeah, it should save since you're recording the meeting. But yeah, just navigating during the meeting, it should come back right.
Okay. Okay, let's try. Application window. Oh, there we go. Okay. So okay, you should see the online course now, hopefully, if I did it right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you haven't checked already, all the course material is here. So the free course, all the videos from the free course, and then also module 10, which is part of the paid course, it's here. All of those videos, some are still missing. Hopefully I'll get those done. Then here's a section where we have the past live meetings, and these are really good to watch. There's some good information in there. But what I will do is up top here, this section will be for news and updates. So the schedule, when we have meetings, that kind of stuff. then that document that I mentioned that you fill in yours with your goals and such, it's here. I also have a link to an adapter so you can connect your radio to the computer if you want to play VRC. If you have a FlySky, you can just connect it with a USB-C cable. For example, Sunway, you need a receiver and then this adapter. So all kinds of information about the course will be here. And then directly below that, there will be a section for the most valuable, most important things that I want you to all watch and learn and understand. And then in the coming meetings, we'll go over that if anyone has any questions about it. Then something I want to show you is the Mayako wiki. If you haven't checked it already, it's really good. We'll be updating this now here. Right after DNC, I'll be home for 6 weeks. And during that time, we'll make a bunch of updates here. One of the valuable pages is this, the interactive setup sheet. We have a new setup sheet almost done because the current one is a bit outdated with all the updates to the car. But the interactive setup sheet is good because basically you'll be able to click on the different settings on the car and then you access a page that has information about that. So rear hubs, for example, lists all the parts here, exploded view, the comparison between the different hubs, setup advice, how to adjust everything to do with the hubs. So it's one place where you can then access all helpful information about whatever you click on the setup sheet. Hopefully this is showing you the different tabs when I switch. Is it?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then this section also after the NC during those 6 weeks, we'll be doing this with Pekko. The idea is that we'll have a really good build guide for electric and nitro. I started this just to show you how each section will be shown. So we can check the shocks here. So there's a build video made by Pekko, and then there's a build video made by David Ronifog. We're going to use this forever. As long as Mayako exists, this will exist here. We got to get our money's worth. So 2 build videos, 2 different drivers building shocks. Obviously, the Ronifog one is a few years old because it's done now with the current buggy. Something that I will add here above is a short video, short summary by me, where I explain the most important things. So even if you don't want to watch the whole build videos, just watch a few minutes of me explaining what I believe to be the most important things. Then below the videos, we have some pictures of the parts and then some advice. And in this section, we'll also add any sort of known issues. For example, for the shocks, known issues or common mistakes that people make. For example, with the shocks, sometimes the bushing is too tight on the shaft, so there's too much stiction, mention something like that. Yeah, basically, just to avoid people building the car wrong. Then setup guides for what pistons to use and what oil conversion chart, what running different amount of holes does, part numbers for pistons and springs, and if there's some relevant invisible speed video, then we'll link it here below. So basically, each bag will have all the relevant information pertaining to that particular step of the build. That's the idea. Hopefully this helps along with a manual at some point. Hopefully it helps people get the most out of the car straight out of the box. And we'll also, where it's relevant, in the later steps, show you where we use titanium screws, for example, or any kind of other option parts. So that's also going to be a section then here below the videos where we'll have the whatever we change from stock. So I don't want to spend too much time on the basics. I'm going to list some really good resources for you in the course material. But really quickly, I always have to say the same things. Always when people ask for help, pretty much 99 times out of 100, it's the same things. So pay attention when you assemble your cars. Pay attention to building them correctly, where if something's supposed to move, it should move without too much friction. The suspension arm should move freely. The shock caps should move freely. Everything should work as intended. It sounds like it's such a basic piece of advice, but if it was easy, then I wouldn't have to say this all the time. So pay attention to detail. Try to take some extra care when assembling and maintaining your car to make sure that you do everything correctly, because it really makes a big difference. And none of my advice after this point will help you unless you do that. So please build your car properly. Soon there won't be any excuse for a Mayako driver not to build their car properly, because we're going to have so much and so detailed advice for you. Another thing, run the basic setup. We have a new setup sheet coming, and I'm updating the basic setups, and they are really good. And I really think that you need to start with them, because they make the car easy and stable to drive. So that should be your starting point. Then the Learn to Drive videos, I'm going to link them for you, because that's where you need to start. And the most important things, or the most important thing, learning to drive, go slow to go fast. Be smooth and be in control. In RC, there's no risk of bodily harm, injury. So most RC racers, they tend to overdrive. They try to be too fast, a bit like Pekko. Is he here? In motocross, it's dangerous. You get hurt if you crash. Most people who pick up a hobby like motocross or something like that, racing in the real world, they go too slow. So it's the opposite between RC and the real world. In the real world, because there's risk of injury, people are too timid. They practice to be able to go faster. In RC, most people go too fast, and the people who learn by slowing down. So keep that in mind. Build your cars properly and start out driving slower, smoother, in control. Before we talk about setup, we need to talk about how to practice just a bit. Because the first things that we're going to do together is practice driving. And the reason is that until you are able to go to the track and run multiple 5-minute runs within a couple of seconds of each other with a 5-minute time, for example, 8 laps and 5 minutes, 38 seconds. Until you can do that a few times in a row, then you don't need to touch your setup. That's just how it is. You really don't need to, because you are not driving well enough. So the first step has to be that you have built your car well, it's maintained well, you go to the track, and you make sure that you are driving well enough. So a typical day could look like this. So you head to the track first you kind of figure out your base. Where are you at? You run 2 or 3 fuel tanks or battery packs if you run e-buggy. And then after that, minimum, you run 2 5-minute runs that you time. And they need to be consistent. So the 5-minute time within a couple of seconds of each other. And if you can't do that, then you just keep running. You just keep doing 5-minute times until you can do that. And it doesn't really matter if it takes you 1 day or 1 week or 1 month or 6 months or all of this year. But seriously, I'm telling you, until you can do this, changing your setup is pretty much irrelevant. You do not need to change your setup until you can do this. I have noticed that if you go to the track, you run a couple of runs first. Then if you run 10 5-minute runs, that's already plenty, because it's actually hard to concentrate properly much more than that. Then Pekko had a good idea for practice, which was, if you've done all that, at the end of the day, what you could do is do some runs and just try to go for the best lap. So push yourself, try to do the fastest lap you can without worrying about the full 5 minutes or crashing or whatever, just trying to produce a faster lap time. Or if you are at the track with someone else, then race around with them, waiting for each other, racing close together, just learning to drive close to another car. Or if you have a mechanic, maybe do a longer run, maybe a 20-minute race with pit stop or 45-minute main final. This is actually something that surprisingly few racers do, but it's really helpful, because concentrating for 5 minutes is one thing. 45 minutes is a completely different thing. Yeah, and we need to practice both. Well, e-buggies don't, but you know what? It's time for a beer. It's been a long day. Italian beer. So I said that the first step is that everyone is able to do consistent 5-minute runs. And only after that does it make sense to start making changes. If you start testing setups before that, you are not going to get sort of valuable information, valuable feedback, because you don't really know what's happening. You have to be able to be connected with the car, be consistent, do the same thing over and over and over. And then when you make a change, you'll actually notice the difference. And what you notice will be reliable. If you aren't able to do consistent 5-minute runs and you start making changes to the car, then if you do it on different days, on different tracks, you will feel different things and you won't make sense of anything. You won't really learn. You won't have a precise understanding of what the change does. What we're going to do is we are going to use this homework document that I've created before, which outlines different changes to make to the setup, and then we'll all do it together, and we'll keep notes and compare our notes and then learn together. And we start from the very basics, like ride height, droop, camber, toe, all of these things, just to force you to do a 5-minute run, make a change, another 5-minute run, and keeping notes, learning for yourself what works and what the changes do. Because you can watch videos, you can read the book, but unless you do it yourself, you won't really understand. You won't really know. And then when we do this, I strongly recommend that you all keep notes. And in the notes, you note down the feeling. So how does the handling feel? What changes? Is it harder to drive? Easier to drive? How is the traction level, steering, all that stuff? And then you note down a 5-minute time, lap time, and also consistency. And all these things that I just mentioned, this is actually the magic. So people always want to know what the magic setup is, or the magic tire, or why some drivers are better than others. Well, this, what I just explained, this is it. A discount, a better discount from another car brand, or a new car version from another car brand, or anything like that, it's not going to help you. This that I just explained, this is what's going to help you. There's really no shortcuts. Even the best drivers, even the sort of really talented drivers, at some point in their life, they did this. For most of them, it was when they were really young and they had a dad or someone who took them to the track and they drove, and they did this at a young age without even understanding they were doing it. And now some of them struggle because they don't understand the car. They don't know what they need to change and when and why, because they haven't done the second part, which is the homework, the making the changes and noting down the differences and all that stuff, right? They did the driving bit, but they didn't learn to understand the car.
I got a question.
Yeah, go on.
So just say we don't have like a lap counter.
Oh yeah,
So
that's a
would
good one.
Would it be good just the time, the 5-minute runs, just on the stock clock, just timing it, and then just see how consistent that time is? Would that be?
You need to learn to do it with your radio.
Mm-hmm.
So I think pretty much all radios have timer function, and you can assign the start and lap and stop button to one of the buttons.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out which one can you easily press while you're driving. So on the Sanwa, for example, there's one under your thumb. So you hold the radio and then you can click it with your thumb. So you don't really need to move your hands in any way. You just click it with your thumb. And the best place to time for me is if the track has a front straight, for example, when you pass yourself on the front straight. So you're going really fast in the front straight and you pass yourself, and that's where you do the lap.
It is for everyone, Joseph, not only for you.
Yeah, I am pretty sure that's the way. It's hard. It's the worst place to time is a slow section, because then you are judging. You want it to be a very fast section, so it's your reaction time basically. You want it to be an easy section, because if you are timing on a jump face, for example, it can really mess up your approach to the jump or your throttle right when you are leaving the jump, because you are sort of trying to also precisely time your lap time. So if there's a front straight, that's the best. If not, another easy straight where there's some kind of clear marking you can see, like when your car passes it, you click the lap. So use your own radio if your track doesn't have timing.
It's also better to do it close to you versus far away, because far away it's a little bit more of a judgment call. So kind of plays into that no low speed, do it in the high speed section that's near you.
Yeah.
Joseph, one other option. I'm sure you know about this, but everybody else may not. There is a GPS-based lap timing system that's only $100 that works really well. It's called Racebox Micro.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the other timing system called? There's another one.
Lap
There's the one that
monitor.
has the sensor in
Yeah.
the car.
Lap
Can't remember.
Lap monitor. Yeah, lap monitor. Yep. It's a infrared, but it works pretty good if you can find a shady spot or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Buddy with a stopwatch might work too.
Yeah. If you have friends, I don't have any friends. I'm always at the track alone, so I never had anyone to pit for me or time my runs.
Poor guy.
Yeah, but if you have, then actually I prefer being alone at the track too. So if you have friends, yeah, have them time you.
Take
Okay.
Pecco with you.
I have to time him, bastard. Anyway, so we're going to talk in more detail about driving, but as I said, I want all of you to watch these particular videos first, and then we'll talk about it. So you are coming into the conversation with more knowledge, and then hopefully you ask questions and we can have a discussion about it. So I don't want to talk more about practice now. What I do want to talk about is the basics of how a car works, just very briefly. I'm going to share my book to talk about that, because the reason I want to mention this, if you want to learn to understand your car, so if you want to learn to understand how to drive better and how to adjust your car, you need to understand the basics of how it works. And in RC, even professional drivers misunderstand and do not understand their cars. So one of the goals of Invisible Speed is to reduce the amount of misunderstanding and fake news, false information, wrong information out there, and to educate and raise the sort of average level of knowledge in RC when it comes to cars and driving and racing. That's why I want to go over the very basics, because if you understand this, then the future is going to be so much easier. Okay? First, when we are evaluating our car, most of the time we can all drive in a straight line, pretty much always, unless something is broken. So what we tend to talk about is corners. That's where we notice that, oh, my car oversteers, understeers, I lose the rear end, my car wants to flip over, I can't stay on line. That's whatever the issue is. It happens in corners. So corners are important. So when we talk about setup, we talk about how it affects the car in corners. So we have braking, usually done in a straight line before a corner. Then corner entry typically happens off power. So you're not on throttle, you're not braking, you're off power, you're coasting, and you turn the wheels to enter the corner. Then you have mid corner. Depending on the type of corner, this is off power or maybe a slight amount of throttle or increasing amount of throttle or steady power. And somewhere in this mid corner section, you have what we refer to as rotation. So you steer the car into the corner, but then it needs to turn more than the front wheels are turning. That is rotation. If a car has too much rotation, you feel like it does a handbrake turn and the rear slides around. So that motion of you turning in and then in a tighter corner, the car wanting to sort of rotate quicker, that's what we refer to when we say rotation. And it can happen, or it usually tends to start off power. Maybe it's completed off power. Maybe the last bit of it happens when you get on power. Still, middle of the corner when the car turns more, rotation. Then you have corner exit on power. You start to accelerate, you straighten out, then you're going full speed again. So remember this and try to, when you keep your notes about different changes you make, for example, refer to the different stages of the corner. Corner entry, mid-corner, corner exit. And how does the setup change affect the car in those different sections? Capiche?
You.
Okay. Then we need to talk about something else, which far too many people do not seem to fully understand. And this is actually where most confusion happens. It has to do with initial grip and overall grip, because people just say, I have good grip, I have no grip. I have no traction at all.
My car won't steer.
Yeah, the way people describe their car is lacking. It's not accurate enough. You can never say sort of that I have no grip or I have too much grip. Like that, it's not good enough. It's not accurate enough. And the way I would describe it is that you can have the same car and two different drivers, and one driver could feel that they have an incredible amount of traction, and then another driver could be doing donuts out there. Now, how is that possible? And if you just say, I have amazing grip, and the other driver says, the car is so loose, I'm just doing donuts, it doesn't make any sense. It is the same car on the same track, two different drivers. One says they have grip and the other says they don't, right? So we have to stop saying that we have good grip or no grip. It doesn't make any sense, okay? This is what you need to do. This is what makes sense. Talk about initial grip and overall grip. Initial grip is the first response of the car. So when something changes, you turn into a corner, you begin to accelerate, whatever inputs you do, the response of the car is that initial grip. If you have a car that has a lot of initial grip, that car will produce the most amount of traction possible, really. To get the maximum amount of grip, you have to make a car have a lot of initial grip. The problem with that is you have a high peak of traction, but it doesn't last. So you lose traction also quickly. This explains why if you have the same car, one person could say, I have so much traction, it's crazy. I've never driven a car with so much grip, because they are driving the car up to this peak, but not going past it. They're a really skilled, talented driver who adapts and drives it within what it can offer. And they really feel like the car has a lot of grip. Another driver with less skill, they turn into a corner and then they just don't do anything. And the car will grip, turn in, and then lose traction and spin out. And they again will feel like it's terrible, it's so loose, because they are driving past this point of maximum traction. So that's initial grip for you. Overall grip is never going to be as high grip as initial grip, but it doesn't matter because it is easier grip to handle. It lasts for a longer time. It's a lower peak, but it's wider. So you don't have to drive the car as precisely because the traction available is more comfortable and any changes don't happen so quickly. So you have time to react and respond, and you can drive the car more calmly and comfortably. The car is more stable. So remember, don't refer to just grip. Refer to initial grip, or overall grip. It's going to make things a lot easier if you do this. And also, when you do your notes about setup changes, note down initial grip and overall grip. Start thinking about your car always in these terms. So why is this important? This is important because basically almost everything we do with setup is manipulating how much initial grip we have versus overall grip, and which end of the car has more initial grip or less initial grip, and how they are balanced. That's what we are doing. And how do we do that? Now we need to quickly mention another thing that people often talk about backwards, in a sense, in a wrong way, and that's load transfer. So when you see that chassis of the car moving, squatting, or diving onto the front, or rolling in a corner, people refer to this as load transfer. They say, oh, my car is transferring too much load, it's rolling too much. That's not the case. Yes, it's an indication. Like here you can see that the car is rolling outwards. So, okay, more load is transferring onto the outside tires. Okay, you can see the direction of where load is transferring. But this is not load transfer. It's actually backwards, because when a car can roll in a corner or dive or squat, it is delaying load transfer. If we imagine a car has equal load on all tires, these dots here represent the load on a tire. So in a situation like this, you can say the load is equal on all tires. All tires have an equal amount of grip. As soon as we drive, load will transfer off some tires onto other tires. So, I mean, this makes sense, right? When you brake, you have all been in a car that slows down. You feel yourself move forward. Your body's momentum wants to continue, but you're in a car that's slowing down. So you feel that. Well, the chassis of the car also feels that, and it dives onto the front. So you understand, the front tires are more heavily loaded than the rear tires in this situation. The car still weighs the same amount. The total of these circles is still the same. It's just more load on the front, less on the rear. When you turn, slowing down, more on the outside front than inside front, but more on both front tires than rear. When you corner, shifts to the outside. When you accelerate, rear outside tire has the most load on it. So you see, this is a dynamic situation. It's constantly changing when you're driving around the track. So what you need to understand is that when a tire is loaded more, it will have more grip, more traction, but only up to a point. And if you had a go-kart with no suspension, it still has load transfer. So this thing that people say that the car is what did I say? They say that the car has too much load transfer, when they are actually talking about the chassis moving too much. It's a bad way of describing something, because a go-kart has load transfer and it has no suspension, right? So how does that make sense? Well, it makes sense because a go-kart has very fast load transfer. A go-kart has a lot of initial grip. Our cars have suspension. When we allow the suspension to move, to roll and dive and squat, we are delaying load transfer. So if we go back and look at the graph, if you have very stiff suspension, your load is transferring quicker as you're driving around the car. Quicker load transfer, faster load transfer means more initial grip, a more aggressive, reactive, responsive car. When you delay load transfer more, you have less initial grip and more overall grip, and the car becomes more stable and easy to drive. I hope this is clear for everyone. So don't talk about just grip anymore. Separate initial and overall grip, and understand that more initial grip means that your car is stiff, the suspension is stiff, a harder roll bar, harder springs, thick shock oil, small piston holes, high roll center. All of these things make the suspension stiff. The load transfer happens quickly. You have more initial grip. When you do the opposite, when you allow the car to move more, when you make it soft, you have more overall grip. The car is more stable. Okay, so why don't you just make it really soft? Well, then we get to this next point. Here you see Darren Bloomfield. Ironically, he was really fast at this race, but he was fast. His car was lacking. You can see that one tire is off the ground. The camber on this rear tire is not very good anymore. It's diving heavily onto the front. This is why you don't just make your car really soft and allow it to roll a lot and be happy, because you still have to keep the car within its working range. That's what I call it. So here we have Tegesi on the same corner, same track, same race. Car is more flat, all tires on the ground, camber angles are more reasonable. The car is within its working range. So this is another thing to consider. When we are adjusting our car, we want it to roll and dive and squat and move around, but within a certain range. We don't want to allow it to go outside of that. This is again something that really skilled drivers are able to do by driving the car differently. To be as fast as possible, you need to drive it at the limits of traction, extracting all the grip you can, but not pushing the car beyond its performance capability. That is the skill of racing a car around the track. So keep these basic concepts in mind, because it will help you to think about your driving, analyze your driving, try to learn to be a better driver by thinking of this way. And also, when we get more into setup changes, you will begin to have to build a sort of a mind map of your own, an understanding of your own regarding how the setup changes affect the car. So it's less about remembering stuff and more about understanding. I'll give you an example, and we'll just think about it using initial grip and overall grip. What could be a good setup change for that? Well, let's use this corner image here. Hopefully you see it.
I was going to suggest, what about ride height? Start simple.
Yeah, but it doesn't really work as good for this.
Okay.
Initial versus overall grip example. So
Shock springs.
Hub height.
yeah, so we look at this picture. Again, it's the corner image. When you enter a corner, if you want the car to respond and turn a lot into a corner, you need a lot of initial grip. Initial grip is what turns a car into a corner. But remember the graph. If you have a lot of initial grip to turn a car into a corner, then mid-corner, you're going to lose traction. So initial grip is lower mid-corner. Then when you get on power again, initial grip is high. So if you have a car that has a lot of initial grip, you'll have good grip entering a corner, lower grip mid-corner, and then good grip again on exit. The opposite is true for overall grip. So if you're focused on making your car calm and stable, you have good overall grip, then it's not going to be so precise and responsive into a corner. But the mid corner, you'll be comfortable because there's not such a drop off in traction. So you'll feel medium or even high grip in the corner, because if you make a change from less overall grip to more overall grip, you'll feel like, oh, mid corner, I have more grip now. So I have a high grip mid corner. Then when you exit, you won't have an increase in traction from mid corner. So I'll explain a few different setup changes just to try to get this idea across. If we talk about anti-roll bars, for example, if you put a harder anti-roll bar on the front of the car, typically people think about it this way. People say, harder anti-roll bar on the front, my car will push. My car won't steer as much. Do you agree?
Generally, yes.
Okay, because this is a very normal way of thinking about it. Like, oh, my car pushes and you're on a loose track, let's say. So, oh, well, I'm going to go to a thinner front anti-roll bar and I'll have more steering. Correct?
Yeah.
Maybe not initially. You'll have more.
So that's kind of the general consensus. You're on a track and your car pushes, you need more steering in tight corners. You go to a thinner front anti-roll bar. But let's think about this now in the way that I explained, using initial grip and overall grip. Then the picture would be a bit different, and I think it would be more clear. And if you apply the same thinking to all of these setup changes, by first thinking, what is it doing to the car? A harder front anti-roll bar is making the front end more stiff, right?
Yeah.
So the front end will transfer load faster. So if we look at this corner image again, a harder anti-roll bar will actually make the car have more initial grip, which means it will be more responsive initially turning into a corner. Okay? Well, then, once you've turned into a corner, then you lose grip. So, okay, that makes sense now. So on a loose track, you don't really feel that initial turning because you're on a loose track. And then once you have initiated the corner, your front end has less traction because of the hard anti-roll bar, so it pushes. That's the feeling you have. If you're on a high grip track, you think about the same thing. On a high grip track, going to a harder front anti-roll bar will make your front end more nervous, more aggressive. But then once you're in the corner, you would have slightly less front traction and less steering. But on high grip with our off-road cars, normally that initial response is what's going to flip the car over or make it hard to drive. So understanding setup changes through this way of thinking, initial grip and overall grip, will help you make better decisions on track. Because instead of just having it in your mind that a thin front anti-roll bar is less steering, a thin front anti-roll bar is more steering, a thick front anti-roll bar is less steering. If that's all you think, then on a high grip track, you're just going to go to a thick anti-roll bar because you'll be like, oh, it's high grip, my car's too aggressive, it's turning too much, I'm going to go to a hard front anti-roll bar. That's what most people do. But if you think about initial grip and overall grip and load transfer, then you think about the hard anti-roll bar. What is it doing to the car? Okay, it's making the front end stiffer. That means load is transferring faster. That means I have more initial grip. Then you understand that on high grip, it's going to make my car more aggressive and more responsive. And that's actually not something I want. Is it making sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think this is a much better way to think about setup and consider this with all the changes that you make. So not just anti-roll bar. Spring would be very similar to this. Front spring also makes the front end stiffer, so same kind of effect. And for the rear, it's the same, but I would say going into the corner, load is on the front. The front is dominant. That's what's affecting the car most. And then exiting a corner, the rear end has more load on it. The rear end is what's dominant and what you should think about more. And then mid corner, it depends on the situation. So what is happening? Do you want the car to turn more, to rotate more? Do you want the front end to turn the car more? Do you want the rear end to allow the car to rotate? Are you having an issue where mid-corner, the rear end suddenly loses traction, for example? That's very common, I think, in off-road. So you go into a corner, everything's fine, and then the rear end just slides out. Okay, so if we again apply the same kind of thinking, then we notice I go into the corner well. If I get through the corner, I get on power, I have good rear traction, everything's fine. But in a few corners on the track, mid-corner, I just lose the rear end. Why? Again, if you think about this from initial versus overall grip, it will make sense. So you go in the corner, everything's fine. Mid-corner, initial grip is lower. So let's say your rear end has a lot of initial grip, go in fine, you lose traction mid-corner, the rear slides out, you get on power, you catch it. So what you would do is think about things that would lower your initial grip, add more overall grip. We just spoke about anti-roll bars.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a hard anti-roll bar on the rear, you would have a lot of initial grip. So a soft anti-roll bar would give your car more rear traction mid-corner, just as an example. So this way of thinking really helps you understand what changes to make in different situations. So springs, anti-roll bars, high roll center versus low roll center. High is a lot of initial grip, low is overall grip. Axle height, low axle is initial grip. High axle is overall grip. All of these kind of changes that affect the stiffness of the suspension, they are relevant here. Okay? Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's clear.
I think that that's really the sort of most important things that I want to really make sure that everyone understands in the coming weeks. Because when we start this way, and when you ask enough questions, if needed, so that you really understand, then all the things that we are going to learn in this year, you are going to build on this base, right? Every time we talk about a different setup change, you will consider, okay, how does this affect initial grip and overall grip? And you will learn to understand that, okay, I make this change to make my car easier to drive in and out of corners. I make this other change to make it easier mid-corner, right? And you understand that when you make a change to the car, it's good and bad, always. There is not a change that you can make that is just always good in every way. There just isn't. It's always a trade-off. There's always something good and bad. Capiche?
Capiche.
Yes. So I will tomorrow add those links in the course material, and I'll look over the sort of homework document and add it there also. And then the VRC information. And I think we go from there. I think there's just over 70 people now in the youth mentoring program. So I think 40 something youth and 30 mentors. So it's off to a good start, I would say. So actually, how many were here in the meeting? 27. Yeah. That's a good percentage, actually. Yeah. So
probably would have had more if there would have been more of a notice.
Yeah, but I don't work that way, you know. I don't like to have things on the calendar. Stresses me out.
No.
So no. So the man with a plan.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope this clarified some things, and we'll have a second meeting maybe the week after DNC, or then 2 weeks after DNC. And by then, I hope you've watched the videos, and we'll work with some, key people to translate information into at least Italian and Spanish. I think we need Italian and Spanish. Yeah. So I can make some basic notes of the important things, and then we have those translated so that everyone can join in, regardless of language.
Also, maybe we can share, and there is a way to build your own key to use WRC,
Yeah, to use what?
WRC, the video game.
Yeah, but there's a way to do what? Play live, you mean, together?
No, the key to put the radio in. You can build it.
Ah, you can make it yourself?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Maybe we can share this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when we start playing that more, it's we can have some set times when we can race each other. I think it's also more fun that way.
So we can beat Joseph Quegre.
Yeah. Well, we tried it with Becco. I was testing it and sort of practicing with it to see if it makes a difference, and I believe it does. And we also tried playing online, me and Pekko. So yeah, it's good. And the 12 scale car and the setups, I mean, the setup we have in the game doesn't really make sense in real life, but it makes the car realistic. It really does feel realistic, in my opinion. So we'll share that, and then we could all sort of run the same setup, same track, and go from there.
Cool.
Okay.
I got an idea. Maybe we can find some volunteers who give them access to the wiki YMP section, and we can make a table with a list of recordings from the VRC track.
Yeah, ranking list.
A ranking list, and someone updated and posted in the YMP. So maybe there is more intent than to beat each other and be on the top of the list.
Yeah, best lap, 8-minute run, and consistency, I think. Maybe we should also have most laps. Who's the craziest, Most laps in a month. Think of prizes.
So if you want to be a volunteer managing that and gathering data from the YMP chat, when people posting results and so on, message me then I try to make it happen somehow.
Yeah. Okay. So any other comments or thoughts?
It's okay for the first one.
Not a last question.
Joseph, not this time. Maybe next time.
Not this time. Okay.
What's some of your plans for DNC? What you've been thinking about? What it's
win it.
How you want to?
We need a Cavalieri in the top 5 at least.
That would be very nice.
Yeah. I think he's
That's
capable.
the top three.
Top three.
Top three? Hmm.
So have you learned how he likes his car? Or it's like setup or
Nah, not really. But I'm pretty sure I can figure it out.
Mm.
I think he is quite close to how Ronnefalk would run his car. Yeah, so I have a few ideas to try. We'll go run on Monday and probably Tuesday if the weather's okay. Hopefully it is. So we get those 2 days.
On the Revelation race way.
Revelation probably,
Mm.
and then we head to the race. I think it will be okay.
Joseph, have you tried the new front shock tower?
No, so we'll try it there. I don't think it will be something really for DNC track,
Yeah.
but it could be. We'll try it. We have it.
Good job on getting that made so fast. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it was good. Hopefully they stick to this now so that they have that machine there ready. So we have a whole bunch of parts that we need made. The truggy parts, which didn't make it for DNC, but should be done right after. And then e-buggy development for the Worlds and new NPC parts. So there's a whole bunch of parts that they need to make now in the next 3 months, really.
We need clothes, Joseph.
Clothes, that's Pekko's responsibility.
Okay.
It really is. It's in Monday even. Under his name.
Where is Pekko? Pekko is not there now. He's building cars now. Oh no, he's Pekko. Okay.
Ooh.
And the time will be the same for the next meeting?
I will, when I come back from DNC, we'll have a meeting for a different time zone. So for the sort of Asian
Okay.
time zone.
Okay.
So they will have watched this, and then we can have the meeting and talk about stuff and whatever questions they have. And then after that, we'll do the second round. So
Ooh.
I think this time works for Europe and some Americans, and then we check. I think this is 8. This starts 8 p.m. for me, so I'll do the other one at noon, 8 hours earlier, probably.
Yeah, another meeting that I don't have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning would be good.
Yes. So that's the plan. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Thank you. And check
you.
Discord
Thank
and
you,
course
Jay.
material next few days.
Thank you,
You'll
Joseph.
see. Thank you.
All right.